The listing had been online for less than an hour when I found it. Night surveillance reviewer, remote access, private medical contractor, high pay. That alone should have made me suspicious. The pay was absurd for what sounded like passive work. No commute, no calls, no degree required. Just attention to detail, emotional resilience, and a willingness to work overnight with minimal supervision. I had 2 months left before my rent ran out, and exactly enough savings to keep me frightened, not comfortable. So I applied. They emailed me back 14 minutes later. No interview, no video call, just a contract, a direct deposit form, and a short PDF titled Protocol for Third Shift Observation Staff. I read it twice before signing because the wording felt strange. Not unprofessional, just too careful, as if it had been written by lawyers and then quietly edited by someone who was afraid of something. The key instructions were simple. 1. Monitor only assigned camera groups. 2. Log all visible movement after 1 a.m. 3. If a person appears on level 10, do not contact local authorities. Escalate internally. 4. Do not zoom in on faces after 3 a.m. 5. If a patient appears in a room marked vacant, flag the timestamp and continue monitoring. 6. Under no circumstances should you replay footage from camera 1031 more than once. 7. If contacted by someone identifying themselves as a patient, end the session immediately. I almost didn't sign after that. But there's a very specific kind of desperation that turns bad instincts into background noise. I told myself it was private hospital legal language, maybe psychiatric, maybe sensitive cases, maybe a facility in another state with strict privacy policies and some weird internal folklore. So I signed. At 11:47 p.m., my login credentials arrived with a single line beneath them. Your observation window begins tonight. Please do not miss your first shift. No company logo, no sender signature, just that. I logged in at 12:55. The portal was clean, modern, and unsettlingly minimal. Black background, white text, a clock in the upper right corner, a live incident panel on the left. On the right, a list of cameras grouped by floor. The building was labeled only as Mercy West Annex. I knew the name immediately, though it took me a second to place it. Mercy West had shut down years ago after a wing fire, a mold scandal, and a series of lawsuits no one ever fully explained. The main hospital had been partially demolished. The annex, if I remembered right, had just sat there at the edge of the city, fenced off and dark, slowly decaying while the developers argued over it. I stared at the name for a while. Then I clicked Connect. The first camera filled the screen. A lobby. Empty. Dust drifting under weak emergency lights. Reception desk abandoned. Chairs overturned. A potted plant dead so long it had become part of the room. Everything lit in that flat gray-white tone of infrared night vision. I switched through a few more feeds. Hallways, stairwells, supply rooms stripped nearly bare, an old ICU floor with half its doors hanging open. It all looked exactly how an abandoned hospital should look, dead, neglected, sealed off from ordinary time. Then I reached level 10. The feeds there were different, not cleaner exactly, but more stable, less static, less dust. The lighting was brighter too, though still in night mode. The corridors on that floor looked maintained. Not modern, but used, sheets on beds, door plaques intact, monitors still mounted in rooms. One medication cart parked neatly against the wall. I checked the timestamp overlay to make sure I wasn't looking at archived footage. Live. I looked at the camera list again. Level 10 had 12 active feeds, Every other floor had between 5 and 8. On the left panel, a small green tag appeared. Assigned Observation Group. Level 10. I sat back slowly. So that was the job. Not the whole hospital. Just this floor. At 1:03 a.m., movement appeared in camera 10 to 14. A figure crossing the end of a hallway. Not fast, not hiding. Just walking from one wing to the other in a patient gown. I froze, then remembered the protocol, and opened the log window. 1:03 a.m., camera 10-14, one unidentified person visible in corridor. The figure vanished around a corner. Seconds later, another camera picked them up. Thin, barefoot, head down, gown hanging too loose off narrow shoulders. Could have been a woman, maybe late 50s, maybe older. Hard to tell in infrared. I expected an alert from the system. Nothing. No panic. No siren. Just the log entry sitting there, as if this happened every night. I watched the woman reach the nurse's station at the end of the hall, pause, and turn slowly toward the camera. I almost zoomed in. Then I remembered Rule 4. Do not zoom in on faces after 3 a.m. It wasn't 3 yet, but the wording bothered me. It didn't say faces are distorted after 3. It didn't say visibility degrades. It specifically said, do not zoom in. Like the problem wouldn't be what I saw by accident. The problem would be me choosing to look closer. The woman stood perfectly still for nearly 20 seconds. Then she lifted one arm and pointed down the hall. At room 1017. The feed froze for half a second. When it resumed, the hall was empty. I checked 10 to 17. Vacant room, single bed, IV pole, one chair, window boarded from the outside. No patient, no movement. At 1:11, the incident panel flashed. Internal response. Notified. That was it. No message, no explanation. The next hour was quiet. Too quiet. I found myself checking the other floors even though I wasn't supposed to. Level 3 had a broken maternity ward full of rusted bassinets. Level 6 had a surgery suite with one overhead light still faintly pulsing. The basement cameras were all disabled. At 2:07 a.m., camera 1022 detected movement. This time, it wasn't a patient in the hall. It was a room. The camera faced into room 1022 from a ceiling corner. The bed was empty at first, blankets folded back, monitor dark. Then the mattress slowly compressed. Not suddenly. Not like someone climbed onto it. It sank gradually, as if a body was becoming heavier there, one bone at a time. Pillow indented, blanket wrinkled. A shape formed beneath the sheet. My mouth went dry. I logged it. 2:07 a.m., camera 1022, apparent body formation on vacant bed. The monitor next to the bed flickered to life on its own. No readable heart rate. Just a flat black screen reflecting the room. In the reflection, someone was standing beside the bed. I leaned forward. In the actual room, no one. Only in the black monitor reflection. Tall, still. Wearing what looked like old-style scrubs and a surgical cap. The shape bent slowly over the sheet. The sheet dipped deeper around the invisible body. Then the feed cut to a gray screen labeled Signal Interrupted. I sat very still for a long time. Then the signal came back. The bed was empty again. At 2:16, a new message appeared in the lower left corner of the portal. If you are seeing delayed admissions, remain calm. Staff are aware. I whispered the words out loud just to hear how absurd they sounded. Delayed admissions. I checked the sender field. There wasn't one. At 2:40, the first voice came through. I had turned the volume down early in the shift because most hospital cameras don't carry useful audio. Just HVAC noise, faint static, the occasional metallic clink. Camera 1031 had no visible motion, but the speaker under my monitor crackled. At first I thought it was electrical interference. Then I heard breathing. Shallow, wet, very close to the camera mic. Then a man's voice, hoarse and exhausted. "Is somebody finally there?" All the hair rose on my arms. I muted the speakers instinctively. The audio kept coming through. Not from the app. From my laptop itself. The voice spoke again. "I've been pressing the call button for hours." I looked at camera 1031, a room with 2 beds, one empty, one occupied. The occupied bed had definitely been empty before. I knew because I'd skimmed that camera twice already. Now someone lay on it under a blanket up to the chest. Middle-aged male, beard growth, hollow cheeks, oxygen cannula in his nose, eyes fixed on the camera. On the room plaque beside the door, a red digital overlay. Blinked. Vacant. I reached for the incident button with numb fingers. Before I clicked, the man on the bed said, very clearly, "Don't flag me yet." I stopped. He stared straight into the lens. "I know how this looks," he said. "Please just listen for a second." His voice was weak, but not delirious. Not screaming, not raving. That almost made it worse. "This is the 10th floor, right?" he asked. I didn't answer. He swallowed. "Okay, good. That means you're early." The oxygen line shifted against his face as he turned his head slightly, checking the room's door without moving the rest of his body. "They're not patients," he said. "The ones in the halls. They're leftovers." I stared, unable to process the sentence. He kept going in a rush. "If anyone tells you they're staff, ask them to name the building next door. Ask them what year the fire was. Ask them which elevator still opens onto 9. They won't know, because they only learn what's useful." My cursor hovered over the internal escalation button. The man noticed. "Please," he whispered. "Once you flag me, they'll mark me observed." I still couldn't speak. He licked cracked lips and said, "If I'm observed for too long, I stop being a patient and start becoming part of the room." The feed glitched. When it cleared, his bed had moved 6 inches closer to the wall. I swear to God it had. I pushed back from my desk so hard, my chair hit the filing cabinet behind me. The man closed his eyes briefly, like he'd expected that. "You see?" he said softly. "It does that." A new system banner flashed across the top of my screen. Reminder: do not engage with unauthorized patient communications. Continue passive monitoring. The man on the bed gave a tired laugh. That's one of theirs. Then the room door behind him opened. No one visible in the doorway. But he flinched hard to his left like someone had entered. His voice dropped to almost nothing. "They're making rounds." The blanket over his legs tightened. Not by much. Just enough to show that something at the foot of the bed had taken hold of it. Then, without visible cause, his chart at bedside lifted and turned a page. He stared at something I couldn't see and whispered, "No, not tonight." The heart monitor beside him beeped once, twice, then began showing a pulse. The waveform climbed across the screen in bright green. The room plaque changed from vacant to admitted. The moment it did, the patient looked directly at me with an expression I can still feel in my ribs. Not fear. Recognition. Like he had just watched the last door in a burning house get locked. He said one final thing before the feed cut to static. "Now you're in the chart too." Then camera 1031 went black. I sat there with my hand half raised, the room around me feeling suddenly too small. At 2:43, my phone buzzed on the desk. Unknown number, a text message. Do not answer any call from Mercy West after 3 o'clock. If they offer you a transfer, close the portal instead. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. Then another message appeared. You don't know me, but I did your job before you. No name, no follow-up. I typed back, who is this? Nothing. At 2:58, all 12 level 10 feeds shifted at once. Not cut, not glitched, shifted. Every camera angle moved 3 or 4 degrees to the right, as if the entire floor had rotated beneath them. The hallways no longer lined up with the blueprints I'd opened in the side panel. Doorways appeared where walls should have been. A handrail along one corridor now ended in blank tile. The nurse's station in camera 1014 was facing the wrong direction. The incident panel flooded with automatic entries. Room status, recalculating bed assignments, updated night shift commencing. My throat tightened. Then the camera in 1017 showed someone sitting in the chair by the bed. The woman from earlier, the one who'd pointed. She looked directly into the camera, folded her hands in her lap, and mouthed something silently. I read it on the second try. You stay longer. If you watch at exactly 3 a.m., the portal interface changed. The black background became dark blue, the font sharpened. New tabs appeared across the top of the screen. Admissions transfers? Mortality review retention? I said no out loud to no one. A call request popped up in the center of the screen. Incoming. Floor supervisor. Below it were only 2 buttons. Accept, observe, silently. No decline option. My phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. Don't accept. Let it time out. They can't hear you unless you choose hearing back. The call request blinked. So did every feed behind it. I clicked observe silently. The center of the screen opened to a live office camera. A small glass-walled room somewhere on level 10. Desk. Lamp. Filing cabinets. A woman seated behind the desk in a navy cardigan and an ID badge. Late 40s, dark hair pinned back, reading glasses low on her nose. She looked utterly normal. That scared me more than anything so far. She glanced down at a folder, then up toward the camera. Good evening, she said. I'm Denise, your floor supervisor. I didn't answer. I'm aware you've already encountered a few irregularities, she continued calmly. That's not uncommon on first observation. Her badge swung slightly as she shifted. I tried to read the name of the hospital under her photo, but the glare on the plastic was too bright. I want to reassure you that all current patients are accounted for. What you are witnessing are legacy impressions from archival occupancy. I actually laughed once at that. Legacy impressions. She nodded as if she'd heard me. Yes. The building's digital infrastructure retained certain nighttime pathways after closure. Think of them as recordings with procedural persistence. That phrase bothered me so much I stopped breathing for a second. Procedural persistence implied repetition. Habit. Things continuing to happen because the building had not realized it was supposed to stop. Denise folded her hands. There is, however, a staffing gap tonight. There it was. I felt it before she said it. A transfer opportunity has become available, she continued. Temporary only. We would like to move your observation authority from remote review to direct on-floor documentation. Every nerve in my body lit up. My phone buzzed again. That's the offer. Close the portal now. Denise smiled gently into the camera. We find in-person staff adapt more quickly after first contact. It reduces distress, improves chart continuity, and limits duplication events. I pushed back from the desk. I should have closed the laptop then. I know that. Instead, I heard myself say, "What does duplication mean?" Denise's smile didn't change. "It means the floor begins making more of what it is missing." The office behind her flickered. For half a second, it was not an office at all. It was a patient room with the desk shoved against the wall and the filing cabinets replaced by 2 upright beds. Then it snapped back. She lowered her voice. "You've been watching for nearly 3 hours. That is enough time for the floor to become interested." I stood up. On camera, 10:31, the black feed suddenly returned. The male patient was still there, but his bed was now against the opposite wall, under the other camera. He looked smaller somehow, compressed by the room. He stared directly at me through the screen and dragged one finger across his throat. My phone buzzed a third time. "If she asks for verbal confirmation, don't use your real name." Denise opened a folder on the desk. "Before the transfer can proceed, I need to confirm identity." She glanced down. "Could you please state your full name for the record?" No. Every instinct screamed no. And yet for one horrifying second I wanted to answer. Not because I trusted her. Because the request itself felt medically familiar, bureaucratic, safe. The tone people use before blood draws and discharge forms, and the worst news of your life. I swallowed hard and said, "Why?" Denise's expression softened. "Because the floor has to know who it's expecting." Something slammed against one of the doors in camera 1014. Then another. Then all the room doors in the east wing shuddered at once, as if someone had run down the hall, hitting each one in passing. The woman in 1017 stood from the chair, turned to the hallway, and for the first time I saw that the back of her gown was soaked dark, from shoulder blades to calves. Not blood. Not exactly. Something thicker. Older. She started running. Every active level 10 camera picked her up in sequence as she moved through the floor, faster than her age or bare feet should have allowed. She ran like someone who knew exactly which doors were still safe. She reached the nurse's station, vaulted the counter, and vanished below camera angle. A second later, something else entered the hall. At first, I thought it was a gurney being pushed by unseen staff. Then it came farther into view. There was no staff. The gurney moved on its own, rolling smoothly under fluorescent lights. On it lay a body under a sheet, strapped at chest and legs. The shape beneath the sheet was wrong in one subtle, horrible way. It kept trying to sit up. Not fully. Just a repeated rise at the shoulders and head, as if some part of it remembered panic, but not anatomy. The gurney turned toward camera 1014. The sheet over the face had no features, but as it neared, the head beneath it slowly angled toward the lens, toward me. Denise kept speaking in that same calm tone over the office feed. "If you are distressed, that may indicate partial recognition. Partial recognition is not fatal." I actually backed away from my own desk. "What is fatal?" She looked up from the folder. "Incorrect placement." My phone rang. Not buzzed. Rang. The caller ID said, "Mercy, West Annex." I knocked the phone off the desk, reaching for it. It hit the floor and kept ringing. Denise's office feed froze. Every camera on level 10 froze. The only thing still moving was the timer on the incoming call. I bent down, picked up the phone, and almost answered before remembering the text. "Do not answer any call from Mercy West after 3 o'clock." I let it ring. The call stopped. Then my laptop speakers came alive with a voice I knew immediately. The male patient from 1031. Only now he wasn't weak. He sounded urgent, clearer, like proximity had changed his lungs. "You waited too long," he said. The feed on 1031 split in half. On the left was his room. On the right was an overhead map of level 10 I had not opened. A dot pulsed red in room 1031. Another red dot blinked in the office with Denise. Then a third dot appeared at the stairwell. It moved, fast, down the hall, toward 1031. "Listen carefully," the patient said. "When the third dot reaches my room, they'll start the transfer, whether you consent or not." My mouth was dry as paper. "What are you?" "I was a reviewer," he said. "Then an observer, then a patient. I skipped staff somehow, which bought me time." He coughed hard. "You need to break line of sight. Their floor only finalizes what can see itself." The third dot kept moving. Every camera it passed flickered once. "How?" "There's a maintenance camera on 9, he said. "Not in your group. Stairwell south. It points up, through the service hatch, into the 10th floor medroom. If you can force that feed active and loop it, the floor watches the wrong room." That sounded insane. Everything already was. The dot reached the hall outside, 1031. The patient looked at something off screen and visibly recoiled. "You have 30 seconds, he said. I tore through the camera list, found level 9, and got an access denied notice. I tried again. Denied. Then a new text came in. "Use admin recovery. Shift plus Alt plus 9. Password is the year the annex stopped taking public patients." I typed it without thinking. A hidden panel opened. I entered 2017. Access granted. Camera 9-South-Service appeared in a thumbnail at the bottom of the page. I clicked it. The image that opened nearly made me slam the laptop shut. The camera looked up through a square grate into a room above. The medroom on 10. But the room was full. Not with equipment, with people. At least 15 patients stood shoulder to shoulder in there, all facing away from the hatch, all in gowns, all perfectly motionless. One nurse stood among them with a clipboard, also facing away. Their stillness was theatrical, impossible, like figures waiting for a curtain cue. In the top left corner of the hidden panel was a button labeled "Loop Last Clean Frame." I hit it. The image froze. The map on the other side of the screen spasmed. Red dots multiplied, then stalled, then began converging on the medroom instead of 1031. The patient in 10-31 let out a horrible laugh that dissolved into coughing. "You did it," he rasped. "Okay, good, good." Then Denise's voice came back, not from the office feed, but from everywhere in the portal at once. That was a breach. Every camera on level 10 snapped live simultaneously. Hallways, rooms, offices. They were no longer just occupied. They were crowded. Patients stood in every doorway. Nurses walked the halls with empty clipboards. Orderlies pushed transparent IV poles trailing lines to nowhere. Beds rolled by themselves. The gurney with the sheeted figure turned the corner again and again on 3 different cameras at once, like the floor had stopped caring about geometry. And every face was angled just slightly away from the lens. Deliberately. Rule 4. Do not zoom in on faces after 3 a.m., because after 3, the floor wanted you curious, wanted you to choose to look closer. A new window opened over everything. Transfer in progress. Remote reviewer to floor placement. Please remain visible. I stumbled backward from my desk so hard I hit the wall. On camera 1031, the patient ripped his oxygen line off and sat bolt upright for the first time. He stared into the lens and shouted, "Get out of the portal!" Then the room around him changed. Not slowly, instantly. Bed gone, chair gone, walls tiled in green, surgical light overhead. 1031 had become an operating room. Hands in gloves entered the frame from both sides and pinned him to the table. There were no bodies attached to the hands, just forearms in blue sleeves reaching out of darkness. The patient screamed my full name. I had never told him my name. My laptop camera light turned on. Small, white, betraying. In the corner of my own screen, a new feed appeared. My apartment, my desk, me standing in front of it. The angle was from my ceiling. Impossible because I didn't own a camera. My blood turned to ice. The transfer window updated. Placement, confirmed observer. Located the unknown number, called again. I answered this time without thinking. A woman I didn't know spoke immediately, low and breathless, like she was hiding while she talked. "Listen to me. Unplug your router and break the screen." "What?" "Your apartment is part of the feed now. If you stay visible, the floor gets an address." My eyes flicked to the little live camera window of my apartment. Behind me, in that tiny frame, my hallway looked darker than it should have. Longer. "Who are you?" "I was on 6 months ago," she said. "Don't ask more. Just move." On my screen, the hallway in my apartment camera feed stretched another foot. Something crossed the far end of it. Fast. I grabbed the laptop, yanked the power cable loose, and the main portal dimmed, but didn't die. Battery. Of course. I lurched to the router in my living room and ripped it from the wall. The unknown woman stayed on the line. Now the screen. I turned back. On the laptop display, the feed of my own apartment was gone. Level 10 remained. Every patient on every camera had now turned toward the lenses. Not fully enough to show faces. Just enough that I knew they were waiting. The transfer window blinked red. Visual route lost. Attempting localization. From the hallway outside my apartment came the unmistakable sound of a hospital intercom tone. Soft static. Then a voice overhead in Denise's calm cadence. "Transport for observation." I didn't think. I took the laptop by one corner and slammed it against the kitchen counter. The screen cracked but did not go fully black. The hospital feeds fractured into jagged pieces. And in those broken shards, for a split second, I saw faces. Really saw them. Not strangers. Reviewers. Dozens of them, layered beneath gowns, beneath staff uniforms, beneath oxygen masks and surgical caps. People in office clothes, hoodies, headsets. Apartment rooms reflected in dead monitor glass behind them. The floor was not full of patients. It was full of everyone who had watched too long. I brought the laptop down again. This time the screen died. Silence rushed in. The call on my phone ended. My apartment went dark except for the stove clock and the city light through the blinds. I stood in the middle of my kitchen, shaking so hard I could hear my teeth. For maybe a minute, nothing happened. Then from the hallway came the squeak of rubber wheels. Not loud, close, approaching my bedroom. I left that apartment with my shoes untied and my wallet still on the counter. I drove until sunrise with every interior light on in the car and the radio blaring because silence had started to sound procedural. By afternoon, I was in a motel 2 towns over. There were 6 missed calls from unknown numbers. 1 voicemail. I did not play it. I slept 12 hours with the TV on and the bathroom light burning. When I woke, There was a new email in my inbox. No subject line, no sender name, just an attached PDF titled Welcome to Floor Documentation. I deleted it without opening. Then I emptied trash. Then I changed email addresses, phone number, bank passwords, everything I could think of. It almost worked. For 11 days, nothing. Then, on the 12th night, in a gas station outside a city I had no intention of staying in, I glanced up at the corner TV above the coffee machine. Local news, muted, storm coverage. Then the station cut, just for a second, to grayscale security footage. A hospital corridor. Level 10. The lower third chyron did not change, but I knew what I was seeing. At the far end of the hall, a room plaque flashed between vacant and admitted, and in the black reflection of a heart monitor, a person stood behind the camera, watching. The cashier asked if I was okay. I said yes. Bought cigarettes, even though I don't smoke. Left. That was 3 nights ago. Tonight I'm in another motel, another town, another state, maybe. I've stopped sleeping enough to care. At 2:51 a.m., the bathroom intercom crackled. This motel room does not have an intercom. A woman's calm voice said, "Observation staff, please prepare for transfer." Then the TV turned on by itself, not to a channel, to a live feed from a ceiling corner. My room. This room. Me sitting on the bed writing this. In the reflection of the dark TV screen, the bathroom door behind me is open, and someone in a patient gown is standing there, just out of direct view, waiting for me to make the mistake of looking at their face. So I'm stopping here, because I finally understand the rules. Do not zoom in after 3 a.m., do not replay camera 1031 more than once, do not answer calls from Mercy West after 3. And most importantly, if a room is marked vacant, but someone is already inside it, that means the room is not waiting for a patient. It is waiting for a witness.